Welcome back. Well, it's been dubbed the trial of splitting the sky versus George W. Bush. And today, a Canadian court is supposed to hand down a sentence on this activist for attempting to arrest the former U.S. president during a visit to Canada back in 2009. Michelle Czesadowski is the director of the Center for Research and Globalization, and he's got more for us now on this story. So, Michelle, what are the accusations against him, and what do you think the sentence will be here?
Well, the accusations are obstruction of justice. Potentially, these could be criminal charges. I've just actually spoken to Splitting the Sky as well as to former attorney Ramsey Clark, who was Attorney General of the United States during the Carter administration, who has flown up to Calgary and who is part of the legal team. It's very important. He will possibly be testifying. The court hearing started just about 20 minutes ago. I spoke to Splitting the Sky about an hour ago. And this is, of course, a very important court hearing because Splitting the Sky, John Boncour, who's a first member of First Nations, he attempted a so-called citizen's arrest of George W. Bush. And he did it on the basis of Canadian law invoking the Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes legislation, which was passed, enacted by the Canadian Parliament in 2000. So this is an important case for Canada, but it's the important case for the whole world, because it really is the test as to who is the criminal. And I think that what he is saying is that George W. Bush is the criminal, and as a citizen, I have the right to arrest him if my government or my law enforcement officers, and he invoked the law enforcement officials when this happened, of course, didn't arrest him. He was on a business visit to Calgary.
Now, he refused to plead guilty, to actually have the charges dropped, right? I mean, you spoke a little bit about this, but why didn't he just take it, right? That's what a lot of people want to know. Why not just take the plea bargain? You get off.
Well, he refused the plea bargain. He refused the plea bargain, and he's a man of principle, and he believes in what he's doing, and he doesn't have he doesn't want to negotiate on this basis. He is pleading non-guilty. I understand from speaking to him and to Ramsey Clark that there's a lot of strength on his side. He's he has a good legal team. He has a lot of supporters. What astounds me is that this is a legal test, and yet there's virtually no media coverage in Canada or the United States or anywhere else on this important court case. Here is a man who is challenging George W. Bush, and it is called Splitting the Sky versus George W. Bush. It is in fact very much a test case as to whether a former head of state who is responsible for waging two illegal wars is responsible for war crimes, and that is what Splitting the Sky is actually. That is what his lawsuit is all about.
Now, you mentioned Ramsey Clark several times. Talk a little bit more about his defense team. I mean, these are big names, right? I mean, what has the reaction been in Canada about all this? And you also mentioned this, you know, not too many people here in the U.S. really know about this case. It's not really covered in the mainstream media. But given those big names on the defense team, why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, Ramsey Clark is a very big name, and he's very respected, and he's known. He's a very principled figure, and he's respected in the United States and internationally. And he doesn't come to Calgary if he doesn't think that this is absolutely crucial, and he considers this as an issue of worldwide importance. He spoke at the University of Calgary, I believe, last night to a Calgary audience. He was sponsored by University Research Center.
So what was the reaction like, though, when he did that? I mean, talk about the reaction there in Canada.
Well, I can't tell you because I wasn't present at that meeting. I know Ramsey Clark personally. I've known him for more than 10 years, and he's a very committed person, and he is for justice, and I'm sure that his presence in Calgary is going to make a tremendous impact on the court proceedings. I should mention that former U.S. Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney came to Calgary back in March when the initial court hearings took place, and she also addressed the university, but she didn't have as much leeway as far as the judge who in fact at that time they shut down the proceedings back in March. Okay. So that in effect, this is really these proceedings are very, very crucial, and
Michelle, the other point here that some people who have been following this particular case, they ask, is it still relevant today? Though, I mean, George W. Bush is no longer in power, so they bring that point up as well.
Well, George W. Bush is no longer in power, but ultimately that doesn't mean that he can that the crimes that he has committed can simply be whitewashed. Okay, those war crimes were committed. Now, if other heads of state and heads of government pursue the same policies and the same military agenda as George W. Bush, I presume that they could also be targeted at some future date when they leave office. But this, we have to understand that when a head of state or head of government, whether it's George W. Bush or Tony Blair, or for that matter, Benjamin Netanyahu, when they leave office, they are liable to procedures wherever they travel. They can be arrested, and in this particular case, it's a Canadian piece of legislation. On which Splitting the Sky has based his case. And so I think it's very important that the message gets out across the land, because a lot of people in the United States resent the W administration for what it did.
And that's why, and that's why we've been covering it here on RT. So it will be interesting to see what ultimately happens with this case. Michelle Chosadowski there for us. He's the director of the Center for Research on Globalization.